Genesis, they knocked on his, it's different, excuse me, not Genesis. They knocked on his window and they're like, do you need help? And they provided him with shelter that night. And then he was able to get back on his feet, all of these things. And now has a home that he's living in. And that's what it is. It's bringing dignity back to these folks.
So you guys, with these funds, you're going to existing organizations that you vetted and you like.
Extremely
For
vetted.
years, Jeff Bezos kept his personal life locked away behind the towering walls of Amazon's empire. He spoke openly about innovation, growth, and disruption. But when it came to love or family, he was silent, almost as if those parts of his life belonged to a different world, a world he was unwilling to share. Yet behind closed doors, that world was far more complicated than the headlines ever suggested. The woman who shaped him was barely mentioned outside rare glimpses and fleeting mentions, until a private leadership event in Aspen changed everything. In that intimate room filled with some of the sharpest minds, Jeff leaned in when asked what he had never said out loud, and simply said it was time to talk about her, a moment so unexpected. It shifted the energy because the story that followed was not the typical billionaire love tale. It was raw, unscripted, and full of unspoken tension. Jeff admitted he had hidden behind mission statements and product.
She was actually, I thought, getting better. You didn't hear anything negative.
Right.
She went to rehab in May, and she was doing better. Okay, you guys, ever get those annoying robocalls?
I just get annoying calls from Steve.
So do I.
He spoke about love, not as a triumphant conquest, but as a place we rarely stop to feel because we are too busy building, and in those words, the world's richest man sounded vulnerable. A man trying to understand why the person closest to him had walked away, not in anger, but with clear quiet. Resolve Lauren Sanchez entered Jeff's life before the paparazzi. Before scandal, she arrived quietly drawn by shared passions of aviation media and curiosity, unaware that she was stepping into a legacy shadowed by emotional distance and the fading presence of Mackenzie Scott, who had already begun to step back from the marriage without drama or public fights. Just a slow, graceful exit marking the end of a partnership that had become co-parenting, companionship, and quiet separation. Lauren found herself inheriting more than a relationship. She inherited the intensity, obsession, and relentless drive that defined Jeff's world. By the time the world noticed their connection, the real story was already in motion, not one of betrayal, but transition. Mackenzie's departure was a carefully guarded boundary, a decision made not out of bitterness, but clarity. A choice to protect her children from a cycle she refused to let repeat. Mackenzie understood Jeff's ambition was not simply a force, but a shield, a wall so high that even love could not reach through. And behind the empire Jeff built was a boy shaped by absence. A boy who watched a father leave and never return. This absence drove Jeff's relentless need for control to create something so vast that no one could abandon it. And while the world admired the Titan, Mackenzie saw the man who had mastered function, not feeling, and that mastery made love difficult, because he forgot how to let people in. Lauren wasn't prepared for that side of Jeff, but Mackenzie had lived it, and chosen to walk away to break the pattern, not just for herself, but for the children. And in doing so, she left behind a legacy of love mixed with pain, a silent challenge that would shape Jeff's next chapter, and Lauren's own journey into a love that was as complicated as it was powerful. A love that demanded understanding more than fixing. And in that complicated space, their story still lives between ambition and...
People use conflict as a tool to achieve their own ends. I don't think it's a good tool. We see sometimes in our political sphere, certain politicians criticize other politicians. They criticize their motives, their character. They call them names. Once you've done that, it's hard.
And public fascination, but one layered with unspoken histories and emotional complexities. She wasn't just dating a billionaire. She was becoming part of a legacy, forged in ambition, obsession, and the scars left by absence when she first met Jeff. It seemed like two souls drawn by curiosity and a shared passion for adventure, aviation, and media. But beneath the surface lay a man shaped not only by success, but by the ghosts of his past. The man who had built an empire from a garage startup was also a man who carried a silence heavier than any headline could capture. At that time, Mackenzie Scott was already slowly retreating from the marriage, not with a dramatic exit, but with a quiet withdrawal, a silent boundary set to protect herself and her children. Mackenzie's choice was one of grace and clarity. She wasn't leaving because of a scandal or betrayal. She was leaving to stop a cycle of emotional distance and the relentless pursuit of achievement at the cost of connection. Jeff's relationship with Mackenzie had evolved into one of co-parenting partnership and mutual respect, but the intimacy and warmth that once defined their bond had faded, replaced by a solemn understanding that sometimes love means letting go. Lauren inherited a world still echoing, with Mackenzie's presence not just in the public eye, but in the very fabric of Jeff's life. A world where ambition often overshadowed affection, and where love was measured not in moments shared, but in accomplishments achieved early on. Lauren sensed this undercurrent of tension. The man she admired for his brilliance was also a man wrestling with his own limitations. His perfectionism, a double-edged sword driving innovation, but also isolating him from those closest to him. The transformation Jeff was undergoing was subtle, but profound. Stepping down as CEO of Amazon was more than a career move. It was a sign of a man trying to rewrite the narrative of his life, trying to find meaning beyond numbers and market value. His public speeches began to reflect this shift. He spoke of joy, love, presence. Words that had rarely crossed his lips before. Moments once reserved for boardrooms were now tinged with vulnerability and reflection. But transformation is never linear. Jeff still struggled. With old patterns, the desire to control, to perfect, to avoid emotional risk, that tug-of-war played out quietly in his relationship with Lauren, who became both partner and mirror, reflecting the man he wanted to be and the man he was afraid to confront. Lauren's resilience was tested as she navigated this complex dance between ambition and affection, between the man who built an empire and the boy who once longed for a father's love. She understood that loving Jeff meant accepting his contradictions, the brilliance and the shadows, the drive and the distance. But it also meant carrying a legacy not of wealth or power, but of emotional survival. A legacy Mackenzie had quietly handed off in her departure. A warning and a challenge wrapped in years of love and sacrifice. Whispers among those close to the situation spoke of a final conversation between Mackenzie and Lauren. A conversation not about jealousy or rivalry, but about understanding the weight of loving Jeff. A sentiment that Jeff himself echoed. He will love you as he has created you, not who you are, but who he needs you to be. Those words weren't a threat, but a profound truth about the nature of their relationship, about the demands of being loved by a man who consumed not just the world around him, but the people in it. Lauren soon found herself adapting, adjusting, canceling plans, softening her edges, not out of weakness, but survival. In a world where love was a contract written in unspoken rules and behaviors, the woman who once stood at the edge of Jeff's universe, confident and untouchable, slowly transformed into someone carrying a burden few could see or understand. The cost of loving a man like Jeff Bezos was not just a matter of money or fame, it was a test of endurance, empathy, and sometimes sacrifice. But it was also a journey of discovery, of uncovering the layers beneath the public persona, to see the boy who waited by a window for a father who never came, and who built an empire to fill that absence. Jeff's transformation was more than a career pivot. It was a reckoning with his own past, a deliberate choice to evolve and maybe finally become the man Mackenzie had always hoped he would be. But that evolution was not without its messiness. Moments of regression and conflict, moments when the ghosts of the past resurfaced, challenging the fragile new equilibrium. Lauren bore the weight of those moments, sometimes the brunt of his internal battles, but she stayed because beneath the complexity was love, real and raw, and a hope that healing was possible for both of them and for their family. In this unfolding story, the quiet departure of Mackenzie Scott was not an end, but a beginning, a catalyst that forced all involved to confront painful truths and to redefine what love and family meant beyond the confines of public image and financial success. It was a story of freedom. Freedom from cycles of silence and emotional absence. Freedom to feel, fail, evolve, and ultimately to unlearn the idea that love must be earned through achievement or legacy. Jeff Bezos didn't just lose a marriage. He faced a reckoning that reshaped his core, and in doing so opened a door for something new, a chance at emotional freedom, a space to be known. Not just admired, a place where love wasn't transactional but transformative, and Lauren Sanchez became not just a witness but a participant in that transformation, walking a path between ambition and ache, between reinvention and remembrance carrying. Forward, a legacy not written in headlines, but in the quiet choices made behind closed doors. The story of Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, and Mackenzie Scott is one woven not just from public headlines, but from a tapestry of hidden emotions, private decisions, and unspoken truths behind the empire. And the glamour lies a deeply human tale of love, loss, and transformation. Lauren had stepped into a world shaped by ambition and silence, where every success came at a personal cost, where love was sometimes overshadowed by the relentless pursuit of greatness. It was a world few could truly understand, and fewer still could navigate without scars. Lauren quickly realized that loving Jeff meant accepting his complexities, his fears, and the emotional walls built over decades by a boy who once felt abandoned. It meant standing alongside a man who could inspire millions yet still wrestle with vulnerability. In private, it was a delicate balance between admiration and empathy, a journey through the highs and lows of a man trying to reconcile who he was with who he wanted to be. Mackenzie Scott's quiet departure was more than a personal choice. It was a powerful statement about breaking cycles and redefining legacies. She left not in anger or bitterness, but with grace and a fierce determination to protect her children from repeating patterns that had long defined their family life. Her decision rippled through Jeff's world, forcing him to confront not just the end of a marriage, but the emotional void left behind, a void he had tried to fill with ambition and control. But that ambition was no longer enough. It was in the silence between the headlines that the real story unfolded, a story of healing and reckoning, of letting go, and learning to feel. Jeff's step back from Amazon was symbolic, but also deeply personal. It marked a shift from external success to internal reflection, a move away from chasing market dominance to seeking meaning in presence and love. Those close to him noticed the change. His conversations grew less about numbers and more about joy and connection. Yet old habits died hard, and moments of tension and struggle remained in the private spaces. Lauren witnessed the man torn between his instinct to control and the desire to grow. She became both his anchor and his mirror, challenging him to face the past and embrace a more vulnerable future. Their relationship was not without sacrifice, as Lauren adjusted her life to accommodate the complexities of loving a man shaped by absence and drive. She experienced the subtle erosion of independence, the quiet adjustments, the compromises made, not from weakness, but from love and understanding. The weight of carrying a legacy not of wealth, but of emotional survival, was immense and often lonely. But Lauren's resilience shone through. She transformed. From an outsider admiring a mogul to an insider navigating the intricate emotional landscape of a man reinventing himself. The narrative that unfolded was not of scandal, but of profound human transformation, a story of love that transcended headlines, and money to touch the core of what it means to be known and to know others. Jeff's growth was a testament to the power of reflection and change, to the messy yet beautiful process of unlearning old patterns and embracing new possibilities. It was a reminder that behind every titan is a person shaped by their history, and that true strength often lies in vulnerability and connection. As the public watched Jeff soar to new heights with Blue Origin and champion causes like climate change, few saw the quiet battles he fought within the walls of his private life, the moments of doubt, the regrets, the longing for something beyond the empire he had built. But Lauren did. She saw beyond the billionaire, the visionary, the mogul, to the man, still healing, the boy, still waiting for love that was not conditional or transactional. Together, they navigated a path fraught with challenges, but also filled with hope. Hope for a future where love and ambition could coexist, where legacy was measured not just in dollars, but in the ability to grow and heal. Theirs was a story not just of power, but of profound humanity. A narrative about the costs of greatness and the courage it takes to change. It was about breaking free from the past to create a new story, one where love was not a prize to be won, but a gift to be given and received freely. And though rumors swirled and speculation persisted, what remained undeniable was the quiet strength of a woman who chose to stay, not to fix, but to understand. And the man who learned that sometimes the greatest achievement is to let go and be vulnerable. In doing so, they redefined what it meant to love in the shadow of legacy and ambition. This is a story that few have seen in full, a story not told in tabloids, but written in the hearts of those who lived it, a story about the complexity of human connection, the power of forgiveness, and the possibility of transformation in the most unexpected places. It is a reminder that behind every headline there is a human story waiting to be told, and that sometimes the most powerful legacies are those forged not by wealth or fame, but by the courage to face ourselves and each other honestly. and with compassion, as Jeff Bezos continued to evolve beyond the public eye. The story of his relationship with Lauren Sanchez deepened into something far more intricate than mere headlines or gossip could ever capture. This was a narrative of growth, pain, and quiet revelation shaped by the very human struggles of love in the shadow of legacy. Lauren found herself entwined in a journey not only of passion and partnership, but of profound understanding and emotional reckoning. Loving Jeff meant navigating a landscape carved by years of ambition tempered by absence, a world where the man she adored was both a titan of industry and a man still wrestling with the ghosts of his past. Mackenzie Scott's departure had left a space that was both a challenge and an invitation. A challenge to confront the weight of history and an invitation to help rewrite a story long shaped by silence and distance. Lauren knew this path would not be easy, for in loving Jeff, she was loving a man who had built walls of control and perfectionism around his heart, walls erected not out of malice, but out of a deep fear of being abandoned, a fear rooted in childhood wounds that had never fully healed. She saw beyond the public persona to the boy who once waited for a father who never came and who had spent a lifetime building empires to fill that void, and yet love in Jeff's world was never simple. It was a constant negotiation between ambition and affection, between the drive to succeed and the need to be vulnerable. Lauren's resilience was tested repeatedly as she adapted to the unspoken rules of a relationship shaped by legacy and survival. Subtle compromises and adjustments became a way of life. Not as concessions, but as acts of love and understanding. The woman who had entered Jeff's world with confidence gradually found herself changed, carrying burdens unseen by the world, but felt deeply within the quiet moments of reflection and intimacy. The legacy Mackenzie left behind was not just wealth or power, but a profound lesson about the cost of love and the courage it takes to break free from cycles of emotional distance. It was a legacy Lauren learned to carry with grace and strength, a reminder that love is sometimes less about fixing and more about accepting. And growing together, Jeff's transformation was not a story of overnight change, but a slow, deliberate journey marked by moments of insight, struggle, and vulnerability. He began to speak differently in interviews, focusing less on market dominance and more on joy, presence, and connection. Words once foreign to his vocabulary became part of his new narrative. Yet the pull of old patterns was strong, and moments of tension and retreat remained frequent in private. Lauren bore witness to the man, caught between his instinct to control and his desire to change a man, learning that true strength often lies in letting go and embracing imperfection. Their relationship was a delicate dance of love and endurance, a testament to the power of empathy and the willingness to face one's own demons. The public saw Jeff launching rockets and championing climate causes, but few saw the quiet battles he fought behind closed doors, the moments of doubt, the longing for something beyond success and legacy. Lauren saw those moments and stood by him not as a fixer but as a partner, helping him navigate the complexities of reinvention and healing. Their story was a reminder that behind every public figure is a human being shaped by history and shaped by love and loss. It was a story of transformation not just for Jeff but for Lauren, as well as she learned to balance her own identity with the demands of loving a man like Jeff, a man whose life was defined by extraordinary achievement, but also profound vulnerability. In the silence that followed Mackenzie's departure, a new chapter began, one marked by hope, courage, and the slow rebuilding of trust and connection. It was a chapter filled with challenges, but also with the possibility of true emotional freedom, a freedom not measured in dollars or fame, but in the ability to be seen and loved for who you really are. As Jeff and Lauren continued their journey together, they faced the world not as a simple love story, but as a complex narrative of legacy, transformation, and the enduring power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. This is a story rarely told, but one that resonates with anyone who has ever struggled to love and be loved in return. A story that reminds us all that behind every great achievement lies a human heart capable of both breaking and healing, and that sometimes the greatest legacy we leave is the courage to change and to love without conditions. In the final chapters of this deeply personal story, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez found themselves at a crossroads where legacy and love converged in ways neither could have fully anticipated. Their journey was not just about public image or business. triumphs, but about confronting the raw truths that define human connection beneath the billionaire status and media frenzy, lay two people wrestling with the weight of past choices and the hope for a different future. Lauren had become more than just a partner. She was a witness to Jeff's transformation, a transformation born not of fame or fortune, but of quiet reckoning and the desire to break free from the patterns that had long shaped their lives. It was a story of letting go of control and embracing vulnerability, a story that unfolded not in the spotlight, but in the spaces between public appearances and media scrutiny. Their love was complicated by the legacies they each carried. Legacies of pain, resilience, and survival. Lauren knew loving Jeff meant accepting the contradictions of a man who had achieved so much, yet still carried the scars of absence and emotional distance. She understood that their relationship was a delicate balance between supporting his drive and helping him find space to heal. The final message Mackenzie Scott left behind was not just a warning, but a torch passed with hope and wisdom. It was a reminder that love is as much about freedom as it is about commitment, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is to allow space for growth and change. Jeff's journey toward emotional freedom was ongoing, marked by moments of progress and setbacks, moments of clarity and confusion. Yet through it all, he moved closer to the man he wanted to be. The man Mackenzie had always hoped for, a man who could love deeply without losing himself. Lauren's role in this was both challenging and profound. She became a mirror reflecting not just Jeff's strengths, but also his vulnerabilities, a partner who walked beside him in the difficult work of reinvention. Their story was a testament to the complexity of human relationships, the way love can both bind and liberate, and the courage it takes to face one's own history and rewrite the narrative for the future in a world that often values success over substance. Jeff and Lauren's story reminds us that true legacy is not just measured in wealth or accomplishments, but in the capacity to grow, to forgive, and to love without conditions. It is a story about breaking free from cycles of silence and emotional absence, about choosing connection over control, and about finding meaning beyond the empire. In the final analysis, Jeff Bezos did not just lose a marriage, he gained a deeper understanding of himself and what it means to be loved and to love. In return, Mackenzie Scott's quiet departure was not an end, but a beginning, a catalyst for change and healing for all involved. And Lauren Sanchez stepped into that story not as a fixer, but as a partner, walking alongside a man learning to be whole again. Their journey is a reminder that behind every public figure lies a private story filled with pain, hope, and the possibility of transformation. And that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we keep buried, waiting for the courage to tell them. It is a story that transcends headlines and tabloid rumors, a story about love, ambition, loss, and the human spirit's resilience. A story that invites us all to look beyond the surface to see the complexity and beauty of those who live in the spotlight, and to remember that at the heart of every empire is a human being seeking connection and meaning. This is the untold truth behind the billionaire, the man who built Amazon, but also built walls, and is now learning to tear them down, a story of reckoning, redemption, and the enduring power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. As you reflect on this journey, remember that transformation is possible for us all, that no matter how high the walls or how deep the scars, the heart has the capacity to break and to heal, to hold on and to let go. And that love in its truest form is not about possession, but about freedom and acceptance. So thank you for joining this journey, for looking beyond the headlines, and for being part of a story that reminds us all of our shared humanity, a story still unfolding, and one that will continue to inspire those willing to see not just the mogul, but the man, not just the legacy, but the love and the hope that lies beyond.
This video covers legal allegations in a news context. All claims are from official filings and no guilt is implied until proven in court. Please keep all discussions respectful. Allegations are not facts until proven in court.